Good morning, everybody. Lots and lots of stuff to get to before the legislature resumes tomorrow. The MPPs will be returning to the House in Ottawa to resume our government, and I'm looking forward to that. But first, there's lots of stuff to get to. So yesterday morning, the PPC tweeted out that 9:36 a.m., quote, "We had a fantastic fundraising drive last weekend, $300,000 in 3 days. Since August 23rd, we've raised $993,000. This week, we have a more modest goal, reach our first million. We only need $7,000 more. Can you pitch in $5 to get there?" And you can see all the small donations, $5, $10, $25, and the incremental increase. And then an hour later, less than an hour later, 10:25, 10:26, they said, "Our first millions, $1 million, thanks." I think that's what that says. Whoops. And you can see the donations here as well. They range from $5 to $1,000. I accidentally clicked off the page, so we had to reload it, but $5 to $1,000. And that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat that people are contributing that way. John McCallum, Canada's ambassador to China, has been fired by Prime Minister Trudeau, and that leaves us in a bit of a quagmire. It's a double-edged sword. On one side, you've got a political battle with China and with Saudi Arabia and that part of the world. And John McCallum has been on the job for 20 years, like not as ambassador to China. He's just been around for a long time. So when you place somebody who has been a steady hand for 20 years into a position like ambassador to China, you expect a steady hand. When a crisis happens, a crisis is happening, and McCallum made it worse. And the other day I reported on this and basically said that it looked like if Trudeau doesn't act on this, it looks like Trudeau was using McCallum to send a message. And at the time, it looked like Trudeau wasn't going to act. He was saying that making a change wouldn't change Canadians who are imprisoned in China. It wouldn't change that fact, so there's no point in making a change. And then 24 hours later, he made the change. So this was yesterday, January 26, and it said, quote, "The Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, today issued the following statement on the resignation of Canada's ambassador to China, the Honourable John McCallum. Quote, last night I asked for and accepted John McCallum's resignation as Canada's ambassador to China. For almost 2 decades, John McCallum has served Canadians honorably and with distinction. He held many positions in cabinet over the years, including Minister of National Defence, Minister of Veterans Affairs, and most recently Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. His work as Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship in bringing over 39,500 Syrian refugees remains an inspiration to Canadians and an example to the world. I thank him and his family for his service over the past many years. Effective immediately and in keeping with standard practice, Jim Nicol, the Deputy Head of Mission at the Embassy of Canada in Beijing, will represent Canada in China as charge d'affaires." And sorry if I've said that incorrectly. And here's a newspaper article talking about John McCallum as the immigration minister overseeing the first wave, or 39,500 Syrians. And I'm not going to go through this article because it doesn't matter, but I wasn't paying that close attention. I actually thought Mr. Hassan had been overseeing the first wave, so I was incorrect. Interesting. And I'm glad that Mr. McCallum is gone. What he did was inexcusable, and really, when you politicize something like the Huawei thing, and I think that Justin Trudeau is also politicizing it. Do not mistake me taking John McCallum to task here for saying that Trudeau's in the right. I think he's in the wrong too. He's politicized this Huawei thing as much as everybody has. But having the ambassador to China make things worse is very problematic, and I'm glad Trudeau fired him and it should have happened 2 days ago. Is there no way somebody can fire Trudeau? We really should have that mechanism. Okay, the federal government announces $15 million of your tax dollars for temporary housing shelters in Toronto, right? The federal government is funded by who, everybody? Our tax dollars, right? And so they're announcing $15 million of our money to help Toronto while not solving the problem. I'm not going to go through this article because it's just $15 million to help Toronto with their housing. But the fundamental crux of the issue here is we are bringing people in via Roxham Road. We, being the government of Canada, is allowing these people to cross in. The processing is taking up to 2 years, 2.5 years. And the idea is if you take their name and say, show up at this court and we'll process you here, they'll go and enter Canadian society and everything will be fine. And it's a way to integrate these people, and then they're going to have the argument of they've made lives here, we can't deport them, right? That's the whole point of the way they're doing this. And my suggestion is, why are we building a temporary housing shelter in Toronto for non-citizens who have never and will never pay into our system? Why are we doing it in the most expensive city in the province? Why aren't we busing these people out to somewhere where it will be very cheap, or there is excess housing, or you can have prefab building that can come down when the people go home because they shouldn't be staying, right? This way is negatively impacting Toronto. It's negatively impacting our province. It's negatively impacting our cities. And we are paying for it, right? I don't want my tax dollars being used for non-citizens to be put up in the most expensive city in the province, if not the country. Okay, no, Vancouver is the most expensive city in the country. Sorry, Vancouver. Right? That's my take on this, and I'm not going to go through this article. You can read it. The link is in the description, but I've given you the too long didn't read. $15 million for housing shelters. $15 million out of your pocket. Raj Grewal is joining the legislature tomorrow as well. He says he's grown. Former Liberal MP Raj Grewal, staying on as MP, says he's grown. This is pretty funny in my opinion. Former Liberal MP Raj Grewal says he's staying on as a member of Parliament for Brampton East. Last November, Grewal announced that he was taking a leave to deal with what he has called a compulsive gambling problem that caused him to rack up millions of dollars in debt. At the time, he promised to make a final decision on his political future before Parliament resumed in 2019. In a Facebook post Friday evening, Grewal says that the last 2 months has been a challenging time, but also a period of immense personal growth. Grewal says that he has since paid back his debts and that every loan he took from family and friends is transparent and traceable. He now sits as an independent MP. Over the last 2 months, I've taken some time away to focus on my health and receive appropriate treatment, Grewal wrote on Facebook. Throughout this time, I also received countless calls and messages from constituents offering their support and encouraging me to continue to serve. It is for these reasons that I've decided to remain as a member of Parliament for Brampton East. So he's not going anywhere. He's coming back into the legislature. So how does money laundering work again? Just $10,000 is the limit? You won't check before that? Okay. These two, the picture just made me howl. And Doug Ford is giving people the opportunity to opt out of programs of paying for programs like this. But up till this year, that hasn't been an option. So CBC News is reporting, quote, Ryerson student union under pressure to explain baffling $250,000 credit card bill. And look at these guys' faces. You want us to pay that back? Oh, really? They used the credit card at Union spent money at LCBO and Casino Rama, among other things. They were using it for their own. It looks like they were using it for, fun, right? Looks like they were just spending away like the government, right? I'm the president. I can do whatever I want. Woo! Or I'm the prime minister. I can do whatever I want. $200,000 helicopter trip to the Aga Khan? What? Is that an ethics breach? Pfft, whatever. Canadians won't do anything. That's proven to be right, apparently. Toronto Sun is reporting 92% of families face tax hike of over $2,200 beginning in 2019, Fraser Institute. And I'm going to read this. This is written strangely, so I might trip up here. So if I do, I'll try again. So bear with me. It says, what was the most surprising thing you found in the report? Canadian families will endure a significant tax increase, and that tax will be increased over time. The Trudeau government has talked a lot about cutting taxes for families. Based on the personal income tax changes they've already put in the case, we found that's not true for the vast majority of middle-class families. But then there are major tax changes set to come into effect starting next year, particularly the payroll tax hike to fund the Canadian pension plan expansion. We found that plus what has already been implemented will result in over 92% of all families with children in Canada paying higher taxes, and they'll be paying on average $2,200 more per year. Why is this significant? The Trudeau government has repeatedly claimed to cut taxes on the vast majority of families, and our findings show that that's not the case. The reason why the Trudeau government is claiming that they cut taxes because they're focusing on just one of the many changes that they've either enacted themselves or spearheaded as a government. The focus has been on the federal rate cut from 22 to 20.5. However, the reality is they've introduced several other tax changes, both to the personal income tax system, and they've spearheaded with the provinces, CPP, which will result in higher payroll taxes. What does a $2,200 tax hike mean in context for 92% of families in Canada? It could be a mortgage payment for a family. It could be childcare, grocery bills. We're not talking about a trivial amount here. It is a significant increase in the tax bill, no doubt. When we look at the middle class, they're actually more hard hit than the overall average, which is ironic because this is the group of families that the Trudeau government has said they wanted to help. In fact, what will happen in practice, there will be basically no tax decrease for anybody once the CPP changes are in full effect. So they took the 2.5% of taxes from the payroll tax and then added it to the CPP and then some. Back to the article. What happens to the remaining 8% of families? And she says, not 100% sure, but what I can say is when you look at the middle group of families, these are families with incomes between $78,000 and $110,000, 99% in this income range will be paying higher taxes. So if you and your spouse make $40,000 a year or more, you're probably going to be paying higher taxes. And I scrolled down. How can Canadian families prepare for this upshift in taxes beginning in 2019? Quote, I don't know if they can. A tax is a forced contribution to the government. I think the takeaway is we have a government that is repeating a claim to Canadians, and I think that it's important for Canadians to be aware of what the claim is, and the reality is contrary to what they're saying. So they're saying the government is making a claim, and that claim is not true, and people should be aware of that. They're saying that there's lower taxes under their government, and that is not factually true, period. And here's by the numbers, 92%, the percentage of Canadian families with kids that will pay higher taxes as a result of federal income tax changes and the Canadian pension plan payroll tax hike. 2,218, what Canadian families with kids, regardless of income, will pay on average in higher taxes. $1,624, what the CPP tax increase alone will cost. 2025, the CPP payroll tax hike will be fully implemented. Okay, so under the Liberals, despite all of the peacocking and statements to the contrary, you will be paying higher taxes. You are paying higher taxes, and those higher taxes are going to fund shelters in Toronto. Yep, we're paying for people to be imported and then for their care, etc., etc. And for that, they need money. Where do they get the money? We fund the government. Right? You see? Check out the People's Party of Canada.ca. Thank you very much for watching. I can't wait for our MPs to get back to Ottawa. Going to be so much fun. I might even have an intro. Woo! Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful day.